There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to mount this bridge is we got to route out a cavity to fit this bridge. And that's just the nature of the beast. As you can see, they have to be routed out a bit to fit in this body. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a laser line and we're making this dead center right up the middle of the fretboard so we can get everything properly set. And then we're going to measure and Dremel out. So here's our line, and I'm going to bring you over to it, and I'll just set you back up here. And so what I did is I took a piece of tape, and that tape, that's a laser line right down the middle. You'll see that running right down the center, right to the center of the nut. So we know that is dead center. Let me show you the nut. And there is the dead center of the nut. And it just moved on me a little bit, but I already know I'm dead center, so... And that's how we're going to do that. And then we'll center the bridge and figure out our scale length, and we'll be all set to mount. Well, I'm going to have to route out, and then we're all set to mount it. So I have already marked where the bridge needs, how far it needs to come back. And we know that our center point is right down this center line right in here. So that's going to be the center of the bridge. But how do we find the center of the bridge before we route? Well, that's simple. We have a hole right here, and this will be our center point. We're going to mark our center point because we can pivot it if we need to pivot it. So we're going to line this up with where this needs to go. And then we're going to make sure that this is dead center here in that hole. Like so. And then if we take our pencil, we can make a mark or even a dimple, but we see our mark, and that's right there. That's a dead center. And then so we don't lose that point because we know the bridge is going to get mounted right here. This is our starting point to where I'm going to start measuring for this piece here and routing out. So let's mark that point so we never lose it. We'll put a little dimple in it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this little safety pin. We know it's a dead center, and I'm going to give it a little push. And I'll create a little hole right there. That is where this is going to sit and be perfectly lined up with the center. So we know everything's going to be right and the strings are going to sit on straight, providing we don't go off here. And we'll take other measurements for that in a little bit. But now, how do we know where this is going to sit? So that's just pretty simple. We know where our center is. We can line up, we can kind of eyeball this. And we know that this is coming across here like so. So I can see where this has got to sit. So we're just going to make a little mark right here. And then we're going to come over on this side, make a little mark right here. We're going to pull this pin out. And it should be, theoretically, about the length of about the width of this ruler. So we're going to go here. And how far over is that going to have to come to the center? So we're at 2 inches in right there. And that's going to be the center. And we don't want to go over that far, so we're going to bring that back to about in this area. Bring it back to here on that line. We want to make sure that we are going to be an equal distance here across. So these are straight, so we can get an indication by simply putting this here. We can get a better indication here and here. And And this is just a rough estimate. Now what we can do, that we've done that, is take our, where this is going to sit, and this is going to, if we find the center would be right here. And what we're going to do is just kind of bring it out and around a touch, nice and close on this one. I'm just going to eyeball it. And remember, it's better to take out too little material than too much. So theoretically, when we drop that in, that should sit right there, right down flush, and we'll be good to go. So this is what's coming out right here. We can measure this to see what has to come out. And we're going to take out about a 1/4 inch is what we're going to take out. So we'll set up our router, and we're going to take it out by hand. If we look at our distance here and here, we should be the same, yes. And yes, so we're good there. And this is what's getting routed out. Okay, so theoretically, this should fit. And I think we got it. Long way, but let's see here what we got. And yes, nice and flush. And are we centered now? That is the question. I think we can be centered. And if you need to remove some more material, you can. We're going to check this, and this is actually, looks like it's going to be a perfect fit. Yes. There we go. So we routed out quite easily. I'm going to ground this a bit differently. I'm going to ground this through this screw right here. It just seems like it'd be a better, more stable ground rather than guessing where these go. So as long as we don't lose that, we'll be fine. What I'm going to do, we don't want to tear that apart. So let's start our center one again. Start. Okay, so now we got our saddle. We'll drop our saddle in, just like that. Now we got the screws to the saddle in. We'll have to clean all this up later on, but they're in. And this is how we adjust. As you can see on these ricks, these are arched already. So you only have a left and a right to adjust when you're adjusting your action. So we drop that in. Make sure your screws face towards the back. We'll drop that in right like so. And that will be like just a baseline. We're going to put this pickup back in for now until the new one comes. I'm going to show you guys another trick that I always do to hold springs in place. Because there's nothing worse than doing these than having a spring fall out and fighting with them, especially when they don't like to hang up correctly. So what you can do is take a piece of foil tape over each one, like so, and it just kind of holds it in place, and the screw will go right through it. Now our springs are held in place, and we can fish this down in where it goes into the cavity. Started. We're not going to clamp it right down yet. And we'll wipe off our fretboard and we'll start to string it up. Okay, so we are going to be using Ernie Ball custom gauge flat wounds, 45 to 100s. And wiped out the fretboard here. Now we're going to string it up, make sure everything's going to be right. We'll start with the 100. And run this up through. Yes, we still have a mess. Notice I only put 2 screws in the pick guard. That is in case we have to get back in there afterwards. For any reason, we don't want to have to pull every screw out. That's so we make sure everything is correct. But I still need to make sure strings are in alignment before we go any further. So what I'm going to do is start running these right up through here. I got enough. I'll run that right up through. Make sure that's sitting where it's supposed to. Yes, it is. And here we are. And there we are. So I'm just getting an idea where that's going to sit on the fretboard first. And quite honestly, we're looking pretty good. Okay. So now we're going to drop down and we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to start at the opposite end. We're going to do our 45. Just to make sure everything is looking correct. Same thing, take a little bend right here, bend it up. Helps it get through that initial curl up right here. Sometimes. There we are. And there we are. And you just run it, you want to run it up to your nut slot and be sitting in our saddle. And we'll adjust our action later on. That is really high. That's definitely not something we want. And we'll do the same thing here. Although they did give us way too much. Yeah, this is totally wrong. So these strings, the wrapping is way too far down the fretboard. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, so on our 45 string, our high string, couldn't use it because the winding came way down to here, and I'll leave a picture of that. And I don't know what Amazon's issue is with bass strings, but this is getting old because this is the second time that this has happened. So anyhow, we're gonna try our 65 right now here and put it on. And I'm gonna get a hold of Amazon and see if they'll send me another pack, or get a hold of Ernie Ball and find out what the deal is. So every other one is fine. It's just the 45, and that's in the package right here. And you can't, just so you know, you can't just take off the sheathing that they put over it, the winding, the threading. You can't take that off because it's different. So it's just, it's not playable. So we're way down into here that was not playable. And, I'll show you what I mean by that, because I took some off just to show you. Let's see here. There we are. So I scraped some off so you could see. See, this is a rough edge. This is your playable edge. So we're literally, and I took it off here to show you. See where this is here? This is unplayable. This is how far down it came. So that's just crazy. So that should have been way up like this, and the string is nowhere near long enough. So what I did is I think they put a short scale string in with the long scales. That's what it appears to be. So note, if you're going to buy these, expect that. So I'm going to come up here a little bit. I'm going to snip off a smidge, and we'll up here. This is a 65, and I tuck that in. This is how I do it. Straight down, nice and tight. Give it a bend around, and I just start turning and use my thumb to guide. And you want to make sure they run under each other. All right then. tight. There we are. So, they're all sitting in their saddle. Yeah, that is a shame about that last one. What a shame. But I did keep the old strings. So here we are together. I just set the action, and it's a bit higher than it was at its lowest point with this bridge, and I guess that's just going to be nature of the beast. And it is within spec. I'm not used to running a bridge mute, so something I'm going to have to get used to. It's the only thing that really was wrong with this build is is this high string right here. Yeah, they sent me a defective string, so we'll see what we can do about that. But man, I just went over and tuned it up. It tuned up good. Seems like it sounds pretty good. So the flat wounds, they still got to be broken in. What's nice is here, listen to the difference. You can hear that. And then a flat wound, you get nothing. You get no sound. Really cool feeling to play. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna play it a little bit and see if I can stretch these strings out a little bit, and we'll see what we can do about this string later on. But that's where I'm gonna have to leave you for right now, because part 2 is done. In part 3, hopefully this string will be taken care of, and we're gonna be installing a new cover here and possibly a new pickup. Okay, thanks for watching Fulton Street Beats, and I'll be back soon.